The orbital veterinary triage station, Orpheon Theta, smelled like ozone and antiseptic, sharper than a scalpel, cleaner than a memory. Sienna Lauren stood just inside the entry vestibule, breathing in the artificial sterility that passed for fresh air in space, and already regretting everything. Around her, the sleek chrome walls gleamed with over-polished pride. Alien medtechs hurried past, glowing limbs, gelatinous bodies, clicking mandibles, each one moving with the frantic grace of people used to disasters on a timer. Sienna adjusted the strap of her satchel, its familiar weight oddly comforting. Inside were the last vestiges of Earth, gauze, vials of antibiotics, a squeaky toy shaped like a turtle. Not standard galactic issue, but somehow always useful. "You must be the terrestrial specialist," a voice said behind her, smooth and dark and unhurried. She turned. He was tall, taller than anyone had the right to be, and broad across the shoulders in a way that made his uniform look tailored by gravity itself. His skin shimmered dark silver at first, but the closer she looked, the more she saw, soft undertones of blue, charcoal swirls beneath the surface like shadows caught under glass. His eyes, those amber eyes, glowed faintly, pupils vertical and fixed on her with intense curiosity. "I'm Elier," he said. "Transport and species handling. You'll be working with me." Sienna nodded, trying not to get distracted by the slight curve of his lips. "Sienna Lauren," she replied. "Earth vet. Mostly small mammals and mid-tier predators. Nothing galactic, yet." His smile sharpened, just a little. "We all start somewhere." Before she could answer, the lights in the corridor strobed red, alarms pulsing in a frantic heartbeat rhythm. Sienna tensed instinctively. She didn't need a translation, panic sounded the same in every language. Elier's expression didn't change. "Incoming trauma. Secure Bay 9. He turned and started running. Sienna followed. They sprinted down a corridor that curved slightly with the station's rotation, the floor humming beneath their feet. Sienna's pulse matched the tempo of the alarms. Around them, medtechs mobilized with uncanny speed, activating force fields and prepping equipment that looked more alien than useful. "What are we dealing with?" she asked, breath measured from years of emergency drills. "Uncertain species. Unidentified biology. Wounded in a skimmer accident. Brought in by a Thranari crew. Description." Elier hesitated, then said, "They used the word monster." Sienna snorted. "That's not a species. That's a projection." "You'll find," Elier said, "that projection is half the job here." Bay 9's containment field buzzed softly as they approached. Inside, chaos. A large creature lay curled on the floor, its body pulsing slowly with pain. Dark fur, matted with blood, black-red and thick as oil, gleamed under the surgical lights. Its limbs were powerful, but curled inward, defensive. Its head was cradled against the floor, jaw slack, breath rapid and shallow. A female alien stood outside the barrier, wringing her claws, long, thin, and trembling. Her lavender skin had turned an ashen gray. "It attacked our skimmer," she cried. "We only barely got it into the med pod. It looked at me, it knew." "Ma'am," Elier said, stepping forward with his voice lowered to something gentle, "it's okay. You're safe now. We're here to help." "You can't help that thing," the Thranari wailed. "It's not an animal, it's a predator. It watched me with purpose." Sienna stepped closer to the containment field and looked through. The creature stirred, just barely, turning one golden eye toward her. Not wild. Not vicious. Terrified. "Open the field," she said. "Wait," Elier said, voice tight. "We need to assess if it's stable. If it has pheromone-based aggression cues, we need." "It's going into shock," Sienna said. "Look at the dilation, the muscle rigidity, the pallor in the paw pads. It's hemorrhaging and it's scared. It's not going to last if we treat it like a bomb." Elier met her gaze for a long moment. Then he keyed the field open. The hiss of the energy barrier parting was nearly drowned out by the sudden silence from the room beyond. The alarms had stopped. The air was still. Sienna walked in. Her steps were deliberate. Slow. She lowered herself to one knee beside the creature and extended a gloved hand. Not to touch, just to let it see. "You're okay," she murmured. "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." Its golden eye blinked once, then closed again. Sienna leaned in and began to work. The wound was clean, a slicing injury from a metallic edge, likely the skimmer's stabilizer fin. Bone deep but not fatal if treated. Sienna prepped a hypo from her kit and injected a sedative behind the ear. The creature shuddered. Then, slowly, it exhaled a soft, whining breath. And then, unexpectedly, its nose pressed against her wrist. A gesture so startling in its familiarity, she nearly forgot to breathe. "That's unusual," Elier said from the threshold. "It's comfort-seeking," Sienna replied. "Animals in pain reach for what makes them feel safe." "You make it feel safe," there was something unreadable in his voice. Sienna didn't answer. She was already bandaging the gash, fingers moving with clinical precision. As she worked, the creature licked her forearm, soft, hesitant. Like a dog unsure of its welcome. "What species do you think it is?" Elier asked after a moment. "No idea," she admitted. "But it's not dangerous. Not to me." The Threnari who'd brought it in stood pressed against the glass, her claws curled. It didn't act like that before." "It didn't know you," Sienna said gently. "Fear does that. Makes everything a threat." She finished dressing the wound and looked up. Elier hadn't moved. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite name. "What?" she asked. "You're not afraid." "Should I be?" He shrugged. "Depends who you ask. Most people here would never walk into a room with an unidentified predator without a force field and a dozen tranquilizers. I'm not most people." He smiled again, small but unmistakable. "No, you're not." The creature, still unnamed, still wounded, let out a low, sleepy noise and curled into a tighter ball, its tail twitching once. Elier stepped closer, voice lowered. That was impressive. Not just the medical part. The calm. "It's not magic," she said. "It's trust. Animals feel it. They know when you're present." "Is that something they teach in terrestrial vet school?" "No," she said. "That one, you learn from having your heart broken." He was silent for a moment, then asked, "How many hearts have you lost?" "One," she replied, looking at the sleeping creature. But it was enough. They watched it sleep in silence, the hum of the med bay a low, steady rhythm beneath them. Elier's voice, when it came, was softer than before. "Do you want to get a drink when your shift ends?" Sienna blinked. "A drink?" "Yes. For instance, there's a terrible rec hall that serves something pretending to be tea. I could warn you away from it, or you could join me in regretting the experience." A laugh escaped before she could stop it. "Is this your idea of flirting?" "Depends. Is it working?" "Maybe," she said. "Ask me again after I know the tea didn't kill me." A few hours later, after the creature had been safely moved to recovery and the medbay quieted, Elier met Sienna by the observation deck. They drank lukewarm tea from mismatched mugs. Hers said Planet Earth, keep spinning. His had a cartoon alien holding up a scalpel. The stars glittered through the viewing dome, distant and infinite. "So," he said, setting his mug down. "You faced down a monster, gained its trust, and lived to tell the tale." "It wasn't a monster," she said, staring at the stars. "Just something alone. Hurt. Misunderstood. That's what most monsters are," he said quietly. "Aren't they?" Sienna looked at him. He met her gaze, steady and open. And for the first time in a long time, she felt something bloom inside her. Not fear. Not regret. Just possibility. Dear Ellen had always been careful with her wings. They were delicate, even by Miralène's standards, long, translucent, iridescent panels that shimmered like wet silk and could fracture from a careless turn in a crowded corridor. More than once she had wrapped them in protective bindings just to move through the more rigid sections of Orphean Theta's medical deck, where bulkheads curved too narrow and walls were designed for function, not form. Today, though, she forgot to bind them. Today, she forgot everything. Because today, he was back. The human. Davin Rise. He wasn't the first human they had met, but he was the first to confuse her biology. Not in the clinical sense, she understood human physiology perfectly, could diagram a heart with her eyes closed and tell a kidney from a spleen by touch alone, but in the other way. The way that turned her thoughts warm and fuzzy at the edges. Davin was a xenobiologist. Emotionally reserved. Quietly brilliant. Frustratingly unreadable. And yet, every time he entered the triage unit, Day's wings flickered uncontrollably, shimmering with tiny pulses of light she couldn't quite suppress. He didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't comment. He never commented. They was restocking sedatives when the emergency call came through. Incoming specimen from Terra-class biosphere, said the overhead chime, sterile and flat. Flagged venomous. Accompanied by 2 handlers. Species, Vulpes vulpes, subtype designation, silver fox, subject exhibiting aggressive distress response. Day's antennae twitched. She turned just in time to see Davin stride through the automatic doors, cradling a motionless silver shape against his chest. His shirt was soaked through with blood. "We need stasis prep, now," he barked. "It's losing coherence." They dropped the sedatives. "Bay 4, she said, leading the way. "I'll assist." The silver fox wasn't like anything she'd ever seen. It shimmered. Literally shimmered. Not just in color, its fur caught the light like stardust, but in presence. Its body was slightly translucent at the edges, as though it flickered between dimensions when distressed. Davin placed it gently on the treatment bed, and they could see its ribs fluttering beneath the skin like wings trying to take flight. "What happened?" she asked, prepping the dermal stabilizer. "It panicked during collection," Davin said, voice tight. "Bit through its own restraint harness. Nearly poisoned the entire retrieval crew." They touched the fox's flank gently. "But it's scared," she whispered. "It's humming." Davin glanced over. "You can hear that?" "Feel it," she replied. "In my wings." Miralène sends energy vibrations. It's broadcasting distress through frequency pulses. "No wonder it overloaded the cage sensors," he muttered. As they worked, her with careful hands, him with surgical precision, they found herself sneaking glances at Davin. Not because she was distracted. Because he was beautiful when he wasn't aware of being watched. Focused. Gentle. She remembered his laugh, how rare it was. How it had once surprised her so much during a debriefing that she'd nearly knocked over a tray of syringes. She hadn't heard it in weeks. "You're tense," she said, not looking at him. "So's the fox." "Yes, but the fox doesn't drink twice as much caffeine and pretend exhaustion is a myth." That got a faint smile. "Barely there. But real." "You've been watching me?" he asked, tone unreadable. Day's wings betrayed her, flaring wide with surprise. "No, I mean, yes. Professionally. Not in the creepy way." His smile deepened, and he didn't press the subject. They stabilized the fox. The bleeding stopped. Its bioluminescence dimmed to a soft silver glow. They watched it settle under the thermal barrier, then exhaled. "It'll live," she said. "With proper care." Davin nodded. "We'll monitor toxicity levels overnight." "I'll stay with it," she said. Miralan energy fields are soothing to some Earth-based fauna. Might help it rest. His eyes met hers, and something quiet passed between them. You don't have to, he said. I want to, she replied. He didn't argue. The medbay dimmed into night cycle. They sat beside the fox's pod, wings half-folded, antennae curled. The creature pulsed in and out of sleep, its thoughts brushing hers in faint, unfamiliar patterns. She didn't mind. Alone in the silence, her thoughts drifted. To her home world, Myral, now half-glassed by atmospheric fires. To the university she never finished. To the memory of her mother's voice, warm and full of stories about love that transcended species and planets and logic. And to Davin. They had never been in love. Not really. The Miralan didn't fall in love the way humans did, they merged frequencies, shared breath patterns, exchanged wing harmonics, but none of that compared to the way her chest fluttered when Davin handed her a scalpel without asking, or the way he looked at her when she translated a creature's body language before the monitors did. He fascinated her. Because he didn't believe in love. Hormonal bonding response, he'd once called it. Survival-linked pair instinct. And yet, when she offered him warmth, he never pulled away. He just didn't name it. And maybe that was enough. The next morning, they was dozing lightly when a hand touched her shoulder. She startled, wings flaring. Hey, Davin said gently. It's okay. Sorry. They blinked up at him, surprised. You're early. Couldn't sleep, he looked down at the fox. It's healing fast. Remarkable regeneration. It likes you, she said, voice hushed. How do you know? Because it's mimicking your breathing. He looked. And sure enough, the fox's sides rose and fell in sync with his chest. Davin didn't smile, but his eyes softened. I'm not used to being liked. I am, she said, before she could stop herself. Liking you, I mean. The silence that followed was thick and fragile. Davin's gaze flicked to her wings, which had begun to glow faintly. That's not a reaction I expected, he said. Sorry, she whispered. I can't help it. We emit light when we're emotionally exposed. And you're exposed right now. Completely. He reached out. Slowly. Not to touch her wings, no one touched a Miralan's wings without invitation, but to tuck a stray piece of hair behind her ear. You're beautiful, he said, so softly she almost didn't hear. Her wings flared, then dimmed to a warm violet shimmer. You don't believe in love, she said, more to herself than him. I don't, he agreed. But maybe I believe in you. She looked up at him, heart skipping in a rhythm she didn't know how to translate. That's a start, she said. They didn't kiss. Not that day. They sat beside each other in the early hour silence, watching the silver fox breathe, sharing warmth that didn't need language. And they, for the first time since leaving Myral, felt like her wings belonged. Not because she was safe. But because someone saw them. Davin Rise had never been afraid of silence. In fact, he preferred it. Silence was orderly. Silence didn't lie. Silence didn't ask you to say things you didn't understand about yourself. But now, in the shuttle bay of Orphean Theta, waiting for a late arrival Med-X transport from the outer rim, silence pressed against him like a weight. Too heavy. Too still. He blamed they. Her voice still echoed in his head, soft and hesitant, liking you, I mean. And his own voice, answering her like it was someone else speaking, maybe I believe in you. The memory made him grip the edge of the console harder than necessary. The soft beep of incoming telemetry jolted him out of his thoughts. Incoming vessel, standard evac pod, designation 527 Kel, the system reported in its clean, inhuman tone. 1 occupant. Life form unstable. Davin snapped upright. Ready the medkit. Dispatch Doc 12. Now. The shuttle descended like a falling star, fast, uneven, burning its propulsion harder than standard safety allowed. It landed on stuttered thrusters, hissing and groaning like it had barely held together through entry. The hatch slid open. The occupant inside wasn't human. But the voice that came from the shadows made Davin freeze. "Help me." "They." He ran. No thought. No plan. Just movement. When he reached the pod, he found her collapsed beside a strange creature, aquatic, gilled, thrumming faintly with bioluminescent pulses. Her wings were torn, one curled unnaturally. Her body was wet, scraped, and her eyes barely open. "Pressure trap," she rasped. Dropped inside a thermal pocket. Couldn't leave it. The aquatic being made a sound like a song underwater, low, mournful, vibrating through the air like a whale's cry in a bottle. "You brought it back," Davin said, incredulous. It was, alone. He stared at her. This woman, this beautiful, breakable, impossible woman, had risked her life for a creature she didn't even know the name of. Because it was alone. "You're insane," he said. She smiled, weakly. "Maybe. Or maybe just, Miralyn." He crouched beside her and checked her vitals. "We have to get you to medbay now. Your oxygen levels are dropping." "No," she gasped. "It's bonded. If we separate, it panics. It'll destabilize." Davin looked at the creature, slim, serpentine, almost eel-like with soft translucent skin and wide eyes. It was coiled protectively around Thay's arm like a child refusing to let go. "You want me to treat both of you here?" She nodded. "You're really testing the limits of my adaptability." Her eyes fluttered shut. He didn't wait. Davin worked like a man possessed. He set up emergency support units from the shuttle's rear hold, adjusting for aquatic environment stabilizers and Miralyn biofield regulators. The creature's skin pulsed with colors he didn't recognize, blue to green to a soft violet, almost in sync with Thay's shallow breathing. When she stirred, hours later, he was still there. Her voice was dry and cracked. "You stayed." "Of course I stayed," he snapped. "What, you think I was just going to drag you into a stasis pod and hope for the best?" Her lips twitched. "That's the Davin I know." He scowled. "You're insufferable. You're beautiful when you're worried." His face reddened. Heavily. "And not just from the heat of the shuttle bay." "Stop talking. You're concussed." "Then maybe I'm finally brave enough to say it." He looked at her. Really looked. She was bruised, scraped, barely clinging to consciousness. And somehow, more radiant than he'd ever seen her. "Say what?" he asked. "You make me feel," she whispered. "Feel what?" "Like this strange, beating thing in my chest isn't just a circulatory necessity. Like it's a song. And you're the melody it wants to follow." Davin sat down hard beside her. "That's not fair," he muttered. "Why not?" "Because you mean it. And I don't know how to give it back." Her hand found his, shaky but warm. "You don't have to give me a song, Davin. Just listen to mine." The shuttle was too small. Too hot. Too quiet. Except for the sound of their breathing. And the soft hum of the aquatic creature, who had begun to glow gently as if comforted by their proximity. Davin finally spoke. "I used to believe feelings were biological noise. Like the ringing in your ears after too much silence. And now? Now I think maybe they're maps. Like trails left by things we don't fully understand. And you're following one?" He nodded. "And every path leads back to you." They didn't kiss. Not yet. But she fell asleep holding his hand. And he stayed awake all night tracing the shape of her wings with his eyes, committing every shimmering fracture and flutter to memory. Like a man falling in love and finally brave enough to admit it. In my world, we do not touch. Not because we lack feeling, but because we feel too much. My skin sings with sensation. Every ripple of water carries thought. Every breath holds memory. We do not lie. We cannot. Our bodies betray even what our minds hide. This is how we love, not with words, but with resonance. With presence. With silence deep enough to echo. But here, on this station made of steel and emptiness, I am silent. Always. Until I met him. He touched me, and the silence cracked. His name is Davin Rise. Human. Land-bound. Firm in gesture, strange in scent. He doesn't glow. Doesn't flicker with mood the way my kind do. But he burns. Quietly. Inwardly. Like the deep core currents in my birth sea. The first time he held me, I was bleeding. I remember little of it. Just warmth. And pressure. And hands that did not flinch from skin that shimmered and shifted. I had bonded to the winged one, she who pulses with light. She wrapped around me like home. But it was Davin who stayed. He sat beside me through the compression phase. Kept my moisture field regulated. Spoke to me like I was a person, not a specimen. And when I finally regained full perception, his voice was the first thing I remembered. "You're safe now," he had said. And I believed him. I live now in Containment Unit 12B, modified to maintain aquatic density and ultraviolet filtration. It is comfortable. Sterile. Impersonal. But he visits. At first, he claimed it was for observation. Monitoring your neurological stability, he would say, tapping on a console that did not need to be tapped. But he lingered longer than required. He asked questions not listed in xenobiological surveys. Do you dream in light? What does silence feel like to you? What do you call that sound you make when you're content? I don't know your word for it, I told him once. But in mine, it means, I am safe beside you. He didn't respond. But his shoulders relaxed. Humans don't notice how loud they are. They fill rooms with thoughts they never speak aloud. I hear them. Not words, never words. But frequencies. Pulses. Vibrations in the space between cells. And Davin hums in grief. It's deep, coiled around his ribs. Like a pain he forgot how to name. Once, when he thought I was asleep, he whispered, "I'm afraid you'll leave too." I opened my eyes. Why would I? Because everyone does, he said, and tried to smile. It didn't work. I asked him to stay. Not with words. With stillness. With the way I press my hand to the tank when he starts to leave. He places his palm to the glass. We are not touching. But something passes between us. I memorize the shape of his fingers. And I begin to wonder. What would happen if I followed him home? My people would not approve. Emotional attachment outside our species is discouraged. Not forbidden. Just not done. Like peeling fruit with your teeth. Possible, but strange. Seen as uncivilized. They would say, he cannot share your resonance. He cannot breathe your oceans. What kind of future could he give you? But I don't want a future. I want now. I want the way he frowns when he thinks. The way he says my name like it's something soft. The way he looks at me like he sees more than skin. Today, he brings me music. A human song, played through an old speaker box. The lyrics mean little to me. But the tone. It aches. He watches my expression. Do you like it? He asks. I feel it. He smiles. That's enough. He sits beside me, back against the tank. And we listen. Not to the song. To each other. Later, I tell him something I've never said aloud. Your grief hums like the deep current before a storm. He stiffens. You feel that? I feel everything. He's quiet. Then he says, I lost someone. A long time ago. I didn't know how to let them go. So I buried the ache in logic. But ache is not logical. No, he says. It's just real. I do not tell him that I am leaving. Not at first. My people have requested my return. Mandatory reintegration, they call it. It means, you've bonded too closely with the alien. Come home before it breaks you. They don't understand. This isn't breaking. It's blooming. On my last night, I glow brighter than ever. He notices. Your skin, he says softly. You're lit up like the stars. I want you to remember me. His eyes narrow. What does that mean? I'm going. Going where? Home. The silence that follows is unbearable. His hands curl into fists. Is this a decision, or an order? Both. So that's it. I swim closer to the glass. I didn't choose to leave. But I choose this. I press my palm to the tank wall. He does the same. His voice breaks. Will I ever see you again? Not with your eyes. And if that's not enough, I will still sing for you. When I leave Orphean Theta, the stars seem dimmer. But as the ship carries me away, I think of his eyes. And I know. Some orbits never end. They just grow wider.